Okay, let's get started. Good morning, all. I've just started the recording, and what I will plan to do today is review working with groups of data, get through subqueries, go over the expectations for Lab 5, which is up and coming, and then talk about the midterm, which is a week from today. So last time we had started talking about functions. Excuse me. Last time we had started talking about functions, and we'd gone through talking through different types of functions that are available to us for usage. So in particular, we have we talked about single row functions for all data types. So we went through these 5 types, looking at general, character, number, date, and conversion functions. So I apologize for the cough. I'll try to be as smooth as possible, but you might hear that in between, which does impact the audio experience a little bit, but apologies for that. So we went through all these different types of functions that you're applying for single row functions, and we want to spend a little bit of time on group functions. This is something you're going to be using. You need to know this, especially for the midterm and also the lab assignment that's up and coming. So if you take a look at group functions, group functions operate on a set of rows, which basically means that you can look at the data set and basically compute some results. When we apply a group function on a data set, without using the group by clause, we are treating the entire data set as one large data set. For example, in this case, if we wanted to find the maximum salary of all employees, we call max sal on a column and we are done. There's a possibility for us to view that by department. So these are several group by functions that are applied. These are several group by functions that can be applied. So what we generally do is we apply the group function, and then we have this optional group by clause, which is what allows us to create subgroups. So if I wanted to say group by department number or group by 2 columns, I can do that using the group by clause. I cannot use group by functionality in the where clause. You'll see that in a moment. It's not allowed. So this is when I'm treating the entire data set in the employee table as one data set. With the where clause, I'm able to limit the query, or I can limit the rows to the sales department. When I do that, I can get average, max, min, and sum. So this is the min and max function, which also not only works with number. It also works with the date data type. So it basically works with any data type. Count tends to count the number of rows in a table. So if I wanted to know number of employees in department 30, this would be the query that I'll end up writing. If you have any questions on any of these functions, please do let me know. Count generally returns non-null rows. So if I end up applying a null value, or if I need to count the null value, I need to use the NVL function for this purpose. So right now it returns 4 rows because there are 2 rows in department 30 that may not have any commission. Group functions generally will ignore null values, which may give us non-standard results. So like I said, you can apply the NVL function, convert the null value to a number using the NVL function, and then see the results, see the correct results as an output of your query. So right here we begin to look at subgroups of data. So if I wanted to do a group by on department, if I wanted to group by department number the average salary, I can do a group by on department number. And right now it does not include the null values unless I say average NVL. I was just thinking about that as well, Crystal. So this is something you want to do. You want to put NVL, and convert the value of the null value to a 0 in the function to get accurate results. The group by clause has a importance in the select statement, and what it does is when you provide the group by expression, that's generally a column name that you specify for grouping the data, and it's used like this. So whatever columns that are in the select list should be in the group by clause. So if I end up selecting department name or department location, I may have to put that in the group by. That's what it says here. All columns in the select list that are not in the group functions must be in the group by clause. So if you end up specifying a column selection, I think I'm repeating myself. Because I'm selecting from employee number, if I end up selecting salary, well, actually we're selecting salary here, but if we end up selecting manager, then I'll have to put group by department number, comma, manager. Otherwise, I'll get a syntax error. The converse is, however, not true. Any columns that are specified, any columns that are specified in the group by clause don't have to be in the select list. I can just look at average salaries. So, Crystal, is your question answered? Let me know. If not, please. So, group by department number. Here, I don't have to have department number in the select list. We can also group by more than one column. So if you wanted total salaries by department number and job within that department, then I can do that by using two columns. That's my group by expression. And as you can see, I put those in the select list. The thing is, if I select a column, I must put it in the group by clause, but the converse is not true. So if I decided to remove department number and job, that's totally fine. You know, it doesn't have to be appearing in the select list. These are some illegal queries. Like we're going to see department number is not in the group by clause. So system will actually guide you with appropriate error messages. This can be fixed by simply saying group by department number. We cannot use group functions in the where clause. If we have to restrict data on groups, then we end up using the having clause to restrict the data. So where is to single rows as having is to grouped data. So if I wanted to exclude groups here, I'm doing a maximum salary by department, but I'm not interested in looking at department 30's data. So the way I exclude that is by using the having clause and providing a group condition. So this is kind of how it works. We say having max salary greater than 2,900. Or we can also say having sum of salary greater than 5,000. So the usage of having clause, as you can see, is workable or applicable with total salary. We can nest group functions to find the maximum of, in this case, maximum average salary, like which department has the maximum salary. So if I wanted to print the department number, I would select department number. So that was on group functions. Knowing group by and having clause and how it works for your lab assignment, I think is super critical. Next topic is working with subqueries. When we want to compare the result of when we want to compare one outcome with another. Outcome here refers to the query. So who is making more salary than Joan? So let's first find Joan's salary, put that into an outer query to get the results. So this is where you end up working with either single rows or multiple rows also together. We've talked about single row functions and group functions. But when we work with subqueries, we can either have uh, a single row as an output from the subquery, or we can have multiple rows. When you have a subquery, generally we put that in the from clause, where clause, or the having clause. Those are the three areas where the subquery can be added. From clause, where clause, or having clause. So when a subquery is processed, one of the things we do is we select the data from the inner query and pass it to the outer query. The outer query then processes the result and produces the final result. Something like this. If I want to find salary of all employees greater than the salary of employee number 7566, then one of the things I have to make sure is that the inner query does return a value. If the inner query does not get any results selected, like the output is no rows selected, then the runtime environment is not going to error out. Like it's not going to give me an error if there are no results returned from the inner query. Okay. So these are some of the technical requirements for syntax for the subqueries. We should always put the subquery in parentheses on the right side of the comparison operator. You can use the comparison operator in the where clause and the having clause. We can also put a subquery inside the from clause instead of a table. So that would act as a temporary table. We do not use order by clause. We should use single row operators for single row subqueries. A single row subquery means that we get one value that is output from the inner query, which is then fed to the outer, outer query, and the outer query looks at the output of the inner query one row at a time. Using multiple row means that the inner query is returning more than one row, and the outer query is going to take a look at those multiple rows for each row. We're going to go through a demonstration of both of these query types in the forthcoming slides. If no rows are selected, then it is assumed as a null. So, but there we cannot apply the NVL function to convert the no rows selected to a tangible value for the query to work. Okay. Using single row operators or multiple row operators is important. So let's look at how those work. You can see multiple rows can either have one column or more than one column. So we can, when we get multiple columns returned, we can treat that as either pairwise or non-pairwise. This is how the single row queries, subqueries work. We use this equality operator, or greater than, less than, or greater than equal to, or less than equal to, or not equal to. So what we are doing is taking the result of the subquery that is computed once and compare that with every row in the um, outer query. Something like that. So we can do single row subqueries like this. So if I wanted to find the job of an employee and salary greater than another employee, then we can do this kind of a query. This would be called a correlated query. When you're linking to the outcome of uh, different data items. So in this case, like job relative to the job of clerk, or job of employee number 7369, and salary greater than employee number 7876. We can use group functions in subquery as long as it's returning one value, especially if you're working with single row subqueries. The group function should return only one value. If the group function is going to return more than one value, then we'll do a multi-column, or then we'll be dealing with a multiple row subquery, which means that we'll end up using in, any, or all operators to represent our output. We can use subqueries with the having clause as well. In this case, we are saying that we want to find the min salary of a department that is greater than the minimum salary of department 20. This is also an example of a correlated subquery. This is also an example of a correlated subquery. So as long as the value returns one value, as long as the subquery returns one value, we are okay with using the single row operators. So if we do a group by on department number, and we have 3 departments, then we are going to be getting 3 values. When we end up using the output of this kind of a subquery that has multiple rows with a single row operator, then we are going to get this error. Single row subquery returns more than one row. So once you get that error, the output is basically no rows selected. In this particular case, there's no error that is shown, but the problem with this subquery is that there is no employee name that has the name of Smythe. So if you're trying to find the job of an employee that doesn't exist, the inner query is going to essentially return a null. So when we say where job is equal to null is what it selects, and then we get the answer no rows selected. These are the multiple row operators: in, any, and all. So say in operator, that is using the equality and the AND operator. As long as it's using the equality and the OR operator. As long as the value that we are specifying is equal to any member in the list at a single row comparison in the outer query, it's going to basically select that row for the output. Any and all use relational operators. Any is also using other relational operators like a non-equality operator to compare value to each value returned by the subquery. So an all is using an AND operator, and it compares the value to every value returned by the subquery. So this is how the any operator is set up. So we find the salary of all employees that are clerks. That apparently returns 4 values. So when we say salary is less than any of the 4, we basically say salary is less than 950, or salary is less than 800, or salary is less than 1100, or salary is less than 1300. So, and of course, with the AND operator used, what we are doing is ignoring all the job. We don't want to select rows where the job is clerk, because we are correlating our query to clerks. So as long as salary is less than any of the salary of the clerk, this any operator will function quite well. Less than or greater than means, I'm sorry, I did not understand that question. It's salary less than any of the salary of clerks. And when we say job not equal to clerk, because I'm looking at the salary of all the clerks for my correlation, in the output I'm excluding all jobs that are not equal to clerk. So when we are doing a correlation, we can look at other job titles like salesman or CEO, etc., but not look at clerk, right? The all operator is like an AND, has an AND connotation, which means that salary is greater than all of these numbers. So we select the average salary for each department. So we select the average salary for each department, and if for 3 departments we end up getting 3 values. So when we say salary is greater than all the values, that means salary is greater than 1566 and 2175 and 2916. So it is a way for the single row subqueries to be used. Then we have multiple columns. It's possible that a subquery may return more than one value. So we can have multiple columns. So we can treat each row in the subquery as a pair, or we can treat each value as a separate as a non-pair, if you will. So I can have multiple values produced from my subquery, and what I'm going to do is compare this pair with each one of these. So basically both values have to match in the pair for me to select the row from the outer query. So something like this. I'm selecting product ID and quantity. And when I say where product ID comma quantity in, then I'm treating this as a I'm treating this as a pairwise. And when I say an order ID is not equal to 605, then I'm excluding, of course, orders for 605 since I'm doing a correlation on that in the multiple column query. So pairwise is when we are working with the result set selected as a pair, so that can have more than one column. And non-pairwise is when we can separate out each column for the comparison, which basically requires separate subqueries. So like in this case, I can say that product ID and quantity, rather than treating that as a pair, I can select all the product IDs in order ID 605, and I can also select the quantity. So now when I'm doing a query like this, I'm doing a non-pairwise comparison. And if I wanted to do a pairwise comparison, this is what that would look like. So that this is pairwise, and this becomes non-pairwise. When I have more than one query for each column. So non-pairwise will deliver more rows, wherein the product ID matches and quantity matches. So these are treated separately as non-pairs. So if I end up with a null value in a subquery, it doesn't really matter. So I'll basically not get an error, but I'll get no rows selected. We can also use subqueries in the from clause. So here B becomes like a virtual table. So I'll have a bunch of columns specified, and I'm specifying a subquery which will be executed first, and I'm labeling that query as B. So B is then the temporary table, and it acts like it just acts like a normal table, and so we can do like a regular join to produce whatever results. So using subqueries in from clause is required from time to time when, let's say in this case, we are trying to combine some functionality with group by, and also regular select statement at the same level. So with that, I mean, this is information on subqueries that you get to know, and that would allow you to, I guess, finish assignment 5. So this is assignment number 5, and I would say this will give you a little bit of a break than the previous labs, because this is like much easier, I would say. So the first question says create a query that displays employee name and indicate their salaries through asterisks. Each asterisk signifies $100. So if somebody's salary is like $4,950, then you would want to round that and print 50 asterisks. If somebody's salary is 2125, then you would want to also round that and just print 21 asterisks. And then you sort the data in the descending order. The way to answer this would be to either use decode or LPAD function. Those are that would be one of the functions that I would use for this question. The second question is using single row functions. So this one is pretty easy. You basically say display the employee name, username, hire date and salary review date within the salary review date, which is within the next 6 months. So it says salaries the first Monday after 6 months of service. So there is criteria provided for each one. Employee name is just the e-name. For question 1, you can use the function named LPAD or decode. And you can actually get a solution with both, but my conjecture is you'll find one function to be easier than the other. Hope that answers your question. For the second question, you have to format some data. So for employee name, you just print the e-name. For username, you have to get the first 2 letters of the name in lowercase. For hire date, you just print the hire date. And for salary, you just print the salary that should be rounded. There's no criteria for rounding. So you can decide this to perhaps dollars and cents or just dollars. And then the salary review date will require you to use a couple of date functions to ensure that the data delivered or the review date shows the Monday after 6 months of the service. So the next question is use a subquery to display all employees in department Boston with salary greater than 1,000. So you're querying you're writing a subquery to display all employees. So you're writing a subquery to find the department location with salary greater than 1,000. So you'll have to structure the answer to that question with subqueries. And then we have question number 2. So question number 2 says write a query to display employee name, job, and hire date of all employees that started between those 2 dates. So we have a query to write employee name, job, and hire date for employees that started between 01 010181 to 123181. So you can use the between operator for that. Concatenating the results, name and job together, separated by a comma. You can use the concat function, or you can use the double pipe symbol to concatenate. So, and then here is a question that I'm giving you, which is coming up with the usage of correlated subqueries, inline views with an example. So correlated subqueries are the ones that I described earlier, where you're working with either single row or multiple rows, and you can do pairwise or non-pairwise. So you can describe that with a couple of examples. And then inline views are the ones we do with the from clause. So those are the two. Those are the two explanations that you have to provide with examples. So that's lab 5 for you all. Any questions on this, folks, so far? And then finally, we have to talk about the midterm. So your midterm is scheduled for May 23rd in the morning, if some of you want to take it then. Some of you might be at work and have expressed interest in taking it in the late evening. So that is why I have set up these 2 times that you can take the test in. Exam will be given online, which means that I'll email you the test before the start time. And we'll go through about an hour and a half for you guys to answer a total of for you guys to answer a total of 6 questions. So all the topics that will be covered for the midterm are basically up to this point, up till whatever we are using for assignment 5. All this stuff on DML statements and transactions will not be on the midterm. So topics list if you need one. Basically working with the select statement, using select from where, working with more than one table, using the concept of joins, different types of joins, single row and group functions, subqueries, and grouping data. So basically the entire select statement with all the 6 things in the select from, where, group by, having, and order by. So please expect questions on all of those topics. So the kind of questions I like to ask on the midterm are generally comprehensive. I can ask you to read code or write code. So I'll give you like a schema. Most likely we'll end up using the employee and department tables. So I'll give you maybe a code snippet, and you'll need to tell me the output, or I can give you a problem and you'll end up writing the query for it. Sometimes, invariably, I also give some questions that that requires maybe describing a concept. So that's what we'll cover next Tuesday. Whether it's morning or evening time, there will be no lecture on March 23rd. So because we will have our midterm. So your next assignment is due June 5th. So information for that would be covered on May 30th, leaving you enough days to submit that assignment within a week. So what we plan to cover next time is going through the relational database design, all these ideas, and then you'll be ready for assignment 6. If you want to get a head start on that, I encourage reviewing these older videos that are out there. So the database should be the same. Your exam, when you're taking the exam, I would recommend not using SQL Plus at the time, for the simple reason that it's only going to slow you down than help you think of the queries. So the way I encourage answering the midterm questions is just answering the questions in like a text document and sending those back to me. So, are there any other questions you guys may have? Can you explain question 2, part B of assignment 5 again? Sure, absolutely. So we'll go through assignment 5. So here you're using a bunch of single row functions. So you display these 4 columns: employee name, username, hire date, salary, and salary review date. So those are the 5 columns. So for employee name, I'm sorry, question 2 part B, forgive me. The usage of correlated subqueries and inline views with examples. So for this, I've talked about several examples of correlated subqueries when you're using the subquery in the where clause or the having clause. Those are correlated subqueries. And inline views are when you use a subquery in the from clause. So I need you to expand on that and produce the answer to this question. Does that help? Okay. All right, guys, this is all for today. I'll see you all next Tuesday, May 23rd at 9 a.m. for your midterm. Have a wonderful rest of the week, everybody. Take care.